Bueno, vamos a empezar este seminario, uno de los últimos del año ya. Tenemos como invitado a Pedro, que es más bien un amigo ya, o sea, más que colega, es un amigo de muchos de nosotros. Él es profesor en la Universidad de Mackenzie, especialista en la informática, y se ha dedicado durante mucho tiempo al estudio de diferentes propiedades de los automaton celulares. Entonces, hoy día, excepcionalmente, se está moviendo algo que está muy de moda, o que estuvo muy de moda, y es la dinámica del COVID, pero entiendo que sigue basado en autómatas celulares. Así que, sí. Sin más, muchas gracias por venir aquí, visitarnos, y tienes la palabra.
Sí.
Y no te enfermes de COVID.
Sí. Muchas gracias, Eric. Buenos días a todos aquí y allá. Es siempre un placer volver a Santiago o ahí. De hecho, como Eric dijo, yo pienso que hablé aquí como que 7 veces, 8 veces, pero no siempre cosas más abstractas. Esta es la primera vez, no tengo experiencia con aplicaciones, modelamiento, pero este fue un caso aparte. Y voy a contar un poco sobre esto. Pero, si me permiten, voy a cambiar para inglés.
Okay.
And I apologize. I had COVID about 20 days ago. And that left me with a remaining dry cough. So I might cough during the talk here. So I apologize in advance. So this work was a Master of Science of Isaias. Isaias started our program, and he wanted to do some application. He was very keen on very clear on this. And as I said, I had I never worked with applications in terms of cellular automata. I did application in the past with evolutionary computation in various situations, but not with cellular automata. And well, the next slide, I'll show you how the thing started, but let me just, I added this logo here because Mackenzie this year is celebrating the 70th year. Last year was the 150th year of the institution as a whole. That includes Mackenzie University. But Mackenzie is still celebrating 70 years. These slides are basically the slides made by Isaias when he presented the MSc. And so I just edited a little. And most of what I will be talking about was published earlier this year. And so in natural computing, the idea was to use this CA-based model of the spread of COVID for the question we defined was probing the collective immunity. So it was an attempt to estimate collective immunity with different settings of this model. Yes, okay. So how this thing started? It was April, May, June, I don't remember, 2020. I received in the WhatsApp list of my colleagues from the university this image. But part of it, actually. This was just the image, without anything further. And at that point, that was the beginning of the pandemic. I found it very interesting. Let us go through this. So this is a general picture of. Yeah, she is very intrusive. It's a picture of what was believed of pandemic at that point. So, an infected individual could go to a path with no symptoms, with mild, moderate symptoms, with severe symptoms, and critical symptoms. That was the way this guy, Hamir, modeled the thing. And at that time, about 30% would have no symptoms, and 55% mild, 10 severe, and 5 critical. And they would go this sequence of states. So the guy with no symptoms, after about 5 days, it would become immune, but still being contagious during the last, the initial 2 weeks or something. Then there was the mild, moderate symptoms, in which the guy could have no symptoms initially, then moderate symptoms, and then become immune. Severe, the severe cases, no symptoms, severe symptoms, hospitalization, and with a certain percentage, some would get immune, and some would die. This would be 15% of the cases. And then the critical symptoms. No symptoms, severe, critical symptoms, ICU ventilation in the intensive care unit. Then most of them, well, half of them would die, and the other would become immune. So this was a picture of the situation at that time. And when I saw that, I really became curious about implementing this and see what we could do with this kind of scheme. And I proposed to Isaias, and okay, so there was an application. And interesting, I was really motivated to, I wanted to do it myself, actually. So that's what we implemented. And so we built this CA. Well, I'll show you. We don't need this. Where is the figure? Oh. So this is the CA. This is based on the classical SEER model, for S being susceptible states, I for infected, and R for removed. And removed, you could consider the dead and recovered. So maybe. So this is the susceptible state. All these I states are infected situation, infected individuals. In the different cases of that image I showed, like infected with no symptoms, infected, no symptoms and contagious, and so on. So that's just like here. There are 10 infected states. Individual with no symptoms, moderate, severe, critical, hospital, ICU, and then the contagious cases. There is only one susceptible, and there are two kinds of R, the dead and the immune. I'll get back to the state transition in a minute, but one thing we did was we would consider an individual to get infected according to those in the 8 neighboring positions. And different infected individuals would contribute differently to the new infection. So this is this is the weight of the individual in the neighborhood. So we just take the average of these contributions, and this gives the probability for an individual to get infected. A susceptible individual to get infected. And so this is the general scheme. So this is the probability of infection is just what I said, the contribution, the average contribution of those infected individuals in the neighborhood. And so this is the starting point. You have a susceptible individual that with a certain probability, according to those infected in its neighborhood, it gets infected with no symptoms. And then you could go through the 4 parts that we showed in the general scheme with certain probability. Those probabilities that I showed in the scheme, we relaxed, as we'll see in the set of experiments. We tried to relax all the settings, all the numbers, so as to get a more realistic model. When there is no, there's a single path, then it's represented with this probability of 100%. And this is the immune state. This is the dead state. And initially, we didn't have this possibility here because at that point, immune individuals would remain immune. But then later we realized that that wasn't the case, right? So we ended up doing this link, but this hasn't been studied properly yet. In the paper that we published, there isn't even this this possibility. And this is yet something to be done more properly. So we implemented this with different parameterizations and tried to measure, somehow get an estimate of what would be the collective immunity. The question is, what is collective immunity? How do you define this? Isaias the system would run until this kind of convergence. absence of cells, of infected cells, until there would be no more infected individuals. So only dead, susceptible, and immune. So this was run up to this point. And well, we will get back to the notion of collective immunity. This is how the thing was set in terms of the experiment. So the world was 100 per 100 cells, and initially a set of individuals in the population would be set to immune. So you would start with some immune individuals and some infected individuals and run until no more infection would be seen. And what was monitored during the evolution was the percentage of the susceptible individuals at the end of the run, the percentage of dead individuals at the end of the run, the convergence, the time of convergence. And this was done, but it wasn't used at the end. So it was in one run, the moment or the situation in which there was the largest rate of infection. So, but so don't bother about this. So these three conditions were monitored during. And so varying the experiments we set were according to these varied sets of parameters. The duration of each state. You remember that in the scheme that I showed that there was the time scale below, but we relaxed this. The probabilities of state transition. It's W here. It's the different contributions of the neighboring individuals and distinct numbers of the initial immune and initial infected individuals. So these were the parameters we played with. So general visualization, this is the world with the only susceptible individuals, and then a percentage of these guys were set to the immune state, the initial immune state. No, the immune state, sorry, there's only one immune state. And then out of the susceptible ones, some of them would get infected initially. It would be to start the disease. Then this would be run until that convergence would happen. No more infected individuals, and then this would be iterated. That was the general flow of the run. So the critical point here was the number. This N12 is the number of initial immune individuals. So the point was really changing the number, the percentage of the individuals at the beginning and see the influence of this. So the idea was that then the parameters we were monitoring, the time of convergence, the number of susceptibles, and this M here is the susceptibles, the immune individuals would be a function of the number of immune individuals in the beginning. In order to do this, the percentage of immune individuals in the beginning were varied from 0 to up to 95%. And for each one, for each number of immune individuals in the beginning, we will do 10 runs and take the average, because it's stochastic. So this was the basic protocol that we used. So 13 experiments were run, each one with a certain parameterization. I'm not going to show all of them, there's no point. And with varying settings, values of the parameters. So all of these 13, you can kind of visualize 3 blocks. The first block, there was only one infected individual. It's different different distributions of the parameters, uniform and normal distribution, and there wasn't that link coming from the immune back to susceptible. That's what I'm saying here, that the time to get susceptible again was infinite. So that link wasn't active. Yeah, in fact, this is related, right? So it's different average. You have a range of variations in the parameters. You have different ranges. So that was experiments 5 to 10, and this was where the paper reached, the published paper. In fact, the first 4 we presented in ACRI, in the last ACRI. And this was the paper that was published in Natural Computing. That was, we only reached this point. Here, in the first set, we had only one infected individual initially. Now, here we have these other values. And again, no possibility to get susceptible. And finally, we now allowed the immune individual to get susceptible again. After 4 months, each time step here corresponds roughly to 1 day. That's how we did it. And so that link from the immune back to susceptible, it could take about 4 months. which is actually what's still considered about 4 months. I have vacunas every 4 months. I have 6 already. And still got anyway. So that was one variation. And here, because these runs were taking too long, instead of running from 0 to 95% every 5%, we shortened this for a smaller number of possibilities. This is just a picture of the kind of settings, the parameters that are involved. Here is about experiment 1, and here's the last one, the 13th. So we can see, for instance, here we have these durations of a state, right? So here we have 4 to 6 days. Here we have 3 to 7. So this is more relaxed, right? So if you compare D5, for instance, 10 to 14, here 8 to 20. So we went on, the first experiment was very rigid. So we went on progressively to relaxing the parameterization to see the effect of this. This was the basic idea. Here, for instance, all these probabilities were fixed, just like they were in the original scheme. And here, they were actually ranges of probabilities, in this case, with a fixed uniform distribution. Here we had uniform distributions within these ranges. Here, Gaussian. The contributions, these are the weights, the contributions of the neighboring infected individuals to the new infected guy. They were fixed, right? And they were relaxed later on with these probabilities. So that was the basic situation, progressively more relaxed setting. So what was defined as collective immunity? This it makes sense. It's an approximation. We'll see a graph in the sequence, but as we'll see initially, for a given number, up to a certain number of initially immune individuals, the number of susceptibles is roughly the same. Then they start increasing. So it was taken empirically by observations of the runs that when sorts of 5% increase in the number of susceptibles, then it would really pick up. So this was one criterion for determining one situation where collective immunity might be considered. Also, a tendency to reduce. As you will see, the convergence time goes on increasing, and then it starts decreasing. And this was kind of arbitrary. When no one dies anymore, it's a wish in some respect. So it has an information in terms of that the disease is controlled. let me, I'll show you a picture. I think, it's here. So what was done? In blue, it's the susceptibles. In gray is the bad individuals. This is the peak of infected, but don't bother about this. This is not useful information. And in this other graph, this is the convergence time. And what we see here in the abysses is the initial rate of immunity. So from 0, 5, 10, etc. So each point that's plotted here is the outcome of 10 runs, starting with this rate of initial immunity. So this is the typical situation we see. As we increase the initial immunity, there is not much effect in the number of susceptibles. But then when there is, from a certain degree of initial immunity, then the number of susceptibles increase. And it starts decreasing because you are putting so many immune individuals in the beginning that you are actually replacing the susceptible ones. So this is an effect of the excess of immune individuals in the beginning. In terms of the time for convergence, as you increase the initial rate of immunity, you start kind of blocking the spread of the disease. So it takes longer to converge up to a certain point where then again you are substituting the initial immune individuals by susceptible ones, and then it decreases. So kind of visually you could set these ranges in this for these values of initial immunity, and this is this that defines then the estimation of the collective immunity. So in the first set of experiments, these were the values. They were with this variation, because you see those two red crosses, they define a range. So these were the values that we got. In the second set of experiments, there was a larger range of values from 55 to 65. In the previous, it was from 52 to 55, then from 55 to 65, the ranges also increased. Here they were around 7.5%. And here there was some larger, well, this is even larger range. And finally, in the last set, which is the one where the immune individuals can get back to a susceptible state, these were the estimates. So if we take everything together, this gives. I don't have the range here, but it's in the paper, but it's not here. So it was this amount, which is it was roughly in tune with what we would see in the beginning of the pandemic. People were saying 60%. that was the magic number, but you know, these new variations that started appearing, it's difficult to say what's the correct, the most correct, but still these are the numbers: 60, 70%, and also you have to take into account the fact that we now know that immune individuals can get susceptible again, and so the model is interesting. You know, the definition of collective immunity is not precise. I don't know whether there is a precise situation in this kind of disease, but the results were coherent in terms of the value. We didn't get any absurd value in terms of what was saying in the literature. There are other things that can be done, and in fact, I have 2 undergrad students right now that will explore this model a bit further. And although we used these possibilities of getting infected again, it wasn't properly done yet. It was mostly when Isaias was finishing the work. And so I would like to see, for instance, I would like to see cycles in the number of susceptibles. I think it's very likely. It would be interesting to find which setting would allow this. The fact that we have now variants, new variants. In fact, I don't know here in Chile, but I received just 10 minutes ago an email from Mackenzie, because in Brazil there is now this BQ1. I don't know if it's already in Chile. The new variant that's picking up. That's picking up. Yeah.
El perro del infierno, the shadow dog.
I don't know.
It's the name.
Yeah.
Popular name.
Ah. Yeah. Huh? Not a good name. So yeah. So I received this email a while ago. Mackenzie was totally relaxed and saying, "Look, we'll still be relaxed, but please be attentive." And so it would be interesting to see the effects of different kind of connections, you know, non-local kind of connections in the not a regular Moore kind of connection. One thing we didn't do, I had asked Isaias to do this at a certain point, but he never do this. He never did it, and we have the data. So it's to get to measure effectively the rate of spread of the disease, right? To see when it was larger than one, when it was. This would be also very much related to the collective immunity, right? We didn't use periodic. Our world wasn't wrapped around, so it creates artifacts in the vertices. So this would be another thing to do. So, muchas gracias por la atención.
Maybe it's naive question, but Have you seen the patterns that the dynamics will generate starting from different initial conditions? I mean, my insight is that if you start with a spatial distribution of immune cells, you
No.
generate different.
No, everything, the initial population was set completely random. But yes, I would expect some effect if we, concentrated the individuals somewhere. I would expect something like that. Yeah.
Otra pregunta. No sé si te acomoda en español, ¿verdad?
No puede hacer en español, pero lo voy a.
Mencionaste que ajustaste distintos parámetros.
Sí.
¿Hay alguno en particular que se relacione con el distinto poder de contagio del virus? Más contagioso, menos contagioso. ¿Hay un parámetro que?
Sí. El parámetro W for weight.
Sí, ese pensaba.
Sí, este sí. Different stages of the infection. We call there are 10 states for infected individuals. These guys have different weight. They contribute differently. So different stages of the disease contribute differently. For instance, an infected individual in the intensive care unit, it's protected. Everyone around is protected. So it won't contribute much to the infection, but an infected individual with no symptoms, it would his effect would be much stronger.
And could you see a relation between this W from with the immunity or immunity? For example, more W changes.
This was one of the parameters that were changed throughout the experiments, but as we saw from the final range of immunity, collective immunity, nothing within these ranges we used. We didn't see any major thing happening, any break, something.
Okay. Muchas gracias de nuevo.
Muchas gracias a ustedes. Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Ahora, sobre todo, por favor.